In this video, I'm going to share with you my process for creating custom arrangements within Ableton Live. I go over workflow, key commands, the creative process. You're going to get a lot out of this video, so let's get going. So something that we like to do at my church is a 1-minute countdown instrumental. And we started this as sort of like a jam session, but then I quickly figured out it was kind of hard to transition out of that jam into something else. So I started building out the sessions with this 1-minute instrumental, and I do all of the legwork inside of Ableton, pulling parts from the song and then just reshaping the section to fit that 1-minute instrumental. So we'll do a little bit of that here. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to make a duplicate of it, Command C. This is going to be the main track, and then I'm going to build out this second one as a instrumental. So I'm going to get rid of the vocals on it. Let's see what we've got here. So typically I like to grab from probably the last third of the song. Something really cool that you can do with Ableton is just drag out any section, and then down here in the bottom corner, it's going to show up right here. It tells you what the duration is, so exactly how long that little bit, that clip is. So I use that all the time to measure out exactly how long a section is going to be. So I'll probably use this bridge refrain. Let's see what cutting that out looks like. Probably cut this section here. Top of the song gets straight into the chorus, so I'm going to want to build out a section that makes sense for whoever's going to do the welcome. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, I'm going to measure out. Here is there's 52 seconds, which is great. I'm going to measure out actually up to here. So I'm going to grab all of this. So I'm just going to get rid of everything before that. One of my favorite things about Ableton, you can cut time. So Command Shift X cuts time. So that got rid of all of the time before that. So I can... Here's a smaller example of that. If I just want to scooch those closer together, I can do that. If I want to paste that time anywhere else, I can Command Shift V. Works just like copy, paste, cut, paste. But the convenient thing about that is instead of cutting and copying individual stems, I can cut everything within a section of time. I will say it works better if you have already made like cuts. Like Command E is going to make that cut there, or incision, whatever you want to call it, and then Command E, and then I can take this section of time and either cut it, put that back, or I can Command Shift D, duplicate that section of time. So if I wanted to extend an outro, or I wanted to make like a double chorus, if I wanted to cut a chorus, cut an instrumental, I can trim that down just by, doing this Command Shift X to cut time. It's really convenient when you start moving around arrangements. So for now, we're going to get rid of everything before that. I am going to want to extend the top of this just a bit. Grab everything. We'll make it 1 bar longer. Take this here, drag that there. Now, as far as the top of this, it's going to look kind of like this. Actually, I'm going to cut everything down before that, and I will work out some stuff to fade in. So, top of this will look a little bit like this.
1, 2, bridge, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so then end of this. think that's where I want that to start. So now I'm gonna cut the count in. Gonna do that trick again. Going to move these closer. See how this lines up. So the idea here being we get to the countdown. I'm going to add a countdown locator here. So 0, 0, 0. So the idea here being a little section of time for a welcome. So sort of. Good morning, welcome. Would you stand with us? Let's sing out some songs of praise together. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. So then I can move this cue here.
Chorus, 2, 3, 4.
That makes that better. Cool. So that's kind of the idea, and now I've given myself a 56-second intro, which is awesome. That's perfect time, and the band can have some fun with that. I am going to fade in, so I added this tambo.
Bridge, 2, 3, 4.
So I'm going to fade in a couple of these things. Make this where it's more of the fill.
3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Bridge, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4.
That works. Let's have more cowbell.
I gotta have more cowbell.
Fade in kind of all of these things.
1, 2. Bridge, 2, 3, 4.
Maybe even longer fade. Trial and error, man. Trial and error. Let's see what this sounds like.
1, 2. Bridge, 2, 3, 4.
Okay. So there's that.
Chorus, 2, 3, 4.
So that's what the top of the song is going to sound like. Now you can do all of these things in different DAWs, but where Ableton I feel like succeeds the most. So I made a whole bunch of cuts, like all of these here, which if I zoom way in, there's a crossfade on each of these. I didn't have to manually do that. In every other DAW that I've worked with, you'd have to manually add each of those crossfades. And that's mostly adding like a clip sound most of the time when you don't have that. Ableton does it automatically, so I don't have to think about that. Another thing that's cool about Ableton, you can take any clip and instantly reverse it. So let's take a piano hit. So let's say I wanted to swell this guy in. You just hit R and it reverse bounces it in place. So I could take something like this, copy it, throw it here, do reverse that clip. So Ableton defaults to snap everything to the grid, but if you hold Command, you could drag something slightly off grid if you need to. Like this, I'm going to leave this little gap. Kind of dig that. I like to use that trick with pads if you need to extend the pad sound or have it fade into itself. If you've got something that is decaying, then you can reverse that, have it fade in. Pretty handy. So I've not been working on this for very long, but I've already got this two bridges, a refrain, and then this intro that will be what our worship leader talks over. So this is pretty convenient for building out things that are custom to the worship service. Now, It is worth noting, I prefer to build these things every time I come to the song. You could just save a new session and then you'd always have that arrangement with that intro. I like to approach each of these with sort of fresh ears. I'm funny like that. I build these things out each week and I want my approach to be a little bit different every time we come back to a song. So that's why I do it that way. You can do it however you want. One quick thing I want to note, you'll see all of the different colors. If you're not doing different colors for different types of instruments, you're missing out. Tell me in the comments why you do colors the way you do colors, but I very much prefer the way we've sort of landed here, where you've got like, we just call them lows, but that's all drums and percussion, bass. If there's synth bass, it'd be in here. Then all the guitars, keys, which normally is a lot, and then anything vocals. At least for me, that seems like a really practical way. If I'm looking for something like I need to find a guitar track to mute real quick, I'm not digging through a whole bunch of synths or a whole bunch of percussion elements just to try to find that thing. I already know it's yellow, it's going to be in here. Speeds things up. So for sure you could make an arrangement like this with a custom intro in other DAWs, but I just find it way easier, and having that ability to crossfade everything automatically just tightens everything up to where I can test things. Here's another thing you can do. For any of these, if you wanted to fly a section, I can take any section of any instrument and fly it over any other instrument. Now that might come in handy if you've got like a drum fill in one part of the song that you want to example what type of fill you would like to hear in going into this section. I can grab something, fly it to someplace else. So like for instance, I've got this smaller fill here, which is all right, but that build is pretty great. I could reuse that build, just copy that. Command Z, it's going to keep it on the clipboard, but I can still copy it here. It's going to build that up to this section. So then I've got a build in that spot where I didn't normally. Yeah, it's two builds on top of each other, but pretty handy. So let's have bass do that same move. We're going to have bass build into that. Anybody else? Let's get at least one of the guitars for reference. So now you've got kind of this little build in there. I'm flying around all kinds of stems and making cuts and whatnot, and Ableton can play back all of these things without blinking. So just for a quick example, here's the fade in.
1, 2,
take a look at that.
2, 3, 4.
11% CPU for that. How about over here with a couple of cuts I made? Now, I should say there is one thing that you can do. If you're really committed to all of these changes, you can hit Command J, which is going to consolidate these multiple clips and chunks into one clip, which is really handy once you've decided this is the way I want things. I don't actually bother doing that for a weekend because I want the control. Like even after rehearsal, I still want to be able to go back and say, you know what, I don't really like that fill I added there. And Ableton plays back all of these things without blinking. So I'm maxing out at 11% CPU. And this isn't like the fastest, the best computer that we have on campus. It runs Ableton well, but by no means do you have to have like a crazy fast computer in order to run Ableton. A stable computer is great, but Ableton does a lot of things without breaking a sweat. So you've seen me make all of these changes to drums and bass, and obviously all of these things are going to get muted in the tracks, right? So we're not going to keep anything except for probably the perk. However, I like to make all of these adjustments and take a fill to like, or a build, fly those things around as a reference for the team. This is something that you can't do if you're using like a cloud-based system. You can't do a bounce of all of these. After I've adjusted all of my outputs, I can then just go in here and hit a quick export. It's super simple to take just a stem. I could bounce exactly what I'm looking for as far as drums or bass. I could do a guitars up mix and bounce just the guitars, pan them hard left and right so that our guitar players can listen back to that. I've done it multiple times. I can bounce just the keys. You do have to get all of your outputs right, sending everything to the master, but once you've done that, you can do a bounce, make an MP3 with whatever you need in it, and then send that to your team so that they know exactly what they need to work on. Now, this is especially important when you're doing something like this, where I'm making a custom arrangement where nobody's heard what I'm trying to do here. But instead of me trying to type out or explain it at rehearsal, I can literally give an example of it, upload that example, and then everybody can hear exactly what I'm planning for the top of the service. So what do you use at your church? Let me know in the comments. And right about now, I bet YouTube is recommending a video somewhere over here that you should watch next. Give it a go. And don't forget, keep getting better.